So yeah, we're going to be finishing up this assignment in this lecture today. So as we've likely seen, I worked on or demonstrated a number of different examples of the text and logo assignment for each and every one of you. And we really just need to finish up now. So the next step that I'm about to show you, which is rendering on an alpha channel, may or may not be relevant to you depending on what style or what you're planning on doing. So just to reiterate, rendering on an alpha or with an alpha channel means that we will be able to replace the background with an image inside of After Effects. So just as a little refresher, the most probably useful, or it's going to open in fireworks every time. The most applicable example for this is going to be, say, this example out of the number of examples that I did, where for this Gotham text we might want to put a image of a dark cloudy sky behind our render. So this is the project that I'm going to open up and demonstrate this on. So let's go on and get that open. So that was, I think it was this one. So we'll let this open up, and we will remember we've got like this series of letters. Now in the actual Gotham example, the text is moving in and out away from the camera, but if we recall, we set up this fun example using the random effector. But regardless of how it's animated, we want to set up the alpha channel. So let's go ahead and do that. So in our render settings, we want to go to the Save tab, and we want to enable this setting here, the alpha channel, and we will go through and set up a render folder. Sequence. So this is, I just have to name this. Alright, so I've got my name, which is all set up good. I've got my alpha channel enabled. Back on the output tab, I don't want to render only one frame. Remember, this is supposed to be an animated assignment, so I have to make sure that I render out all my frames. And then in anti-aliasing, we can just check the anti-aliasing to best, and then change the filter to the one that is for animations. So this should be good. I shouldn't have to do a whole lot more for the time being. So cool. So we're going to hit render to the picture viewer, and this is going to go through and it's going to do its thing. Oh, actually no. This is good that I messed this up, I think. No. Here. Okay. So I want to double check my alpha channel. So I need to switch this button right here to layer and then single pass. This is if you want to verify that you have an alpha channel. So here we have our render, and here we have our alpha channel. So if we remember, like in Photoshop, a mask, white will reveal the image and black will hide the image. This is what we are looking for in the case of an alpha channel. So I should actually be good. So I accidentally stopped that on accident, but I do want to actually let that run. So I am going to pause the render because this is going to, remember, this has to go through and render out every frame. So we're not going to sit here and wait, but I will pick this back up momentarily. Alright, so I think we're back. Our render has finished inside of Cinema. I have already opened up both Media Encoder and After Effects, so hopefully we don't have to wait too long for those, so we can get this show back on the road. So, alpha channels. The whole reason we did this is so that we can put some sort of background image behind our render. So we have to go find such an image. So we can go open up our friend Google, and we'll take a trip to Google Images. So we'll look up storm sky background. Because remember, our Gotham example has some sort of moody font or a moody kind of vibe. This isn't too bad. And obviously we could spend a lot of time finding a particular image, so I'm just going to filter these to large. Well, I don't want this to take too long, so we're just going to use this one, and if we need to make any sort of tweaks or changes to it, we can always do those inside of After Effects. So we're going to save this image, and I don't have a better place to put it, so I will just put it into my assignment to textures folder, because why not? So we'll go to After Effects. So now we've got a background image and our render. We're ready to put them together. So what do we need to do? Well, first things first, we need to start importing these assets. So as we remember, we want to import the rendered sequence from Cinema 4D. So I've navigated to that folder already. I can select the first image, and we can see that the checkbox that says sequence is enabled, this one right here. So I can go to hit import. And now, because we have an alpha channel, After Effects wants to just confirm with us that we are setting this up correctly. And 99% of the time, we can probably just leave this on straight unmatted. Once in a while, you might run into this if you get into the After Effects classes. There are times to use the pre-multiplied option, but for this one, I've already tried it, and I know that straight unmatted works for me. So I can hit OK. So that's all cool. I've imported it into the bin here where all my project assets are. So I have to drag it down to the new composition button, and this will now add it to my timeline. And if I click play or just spacebar, we can see now obviously, you know, you guys will put more time into your animation or your lighting or your materials or whatever. This is just, you know, what I can show in the time that I have to lecture, so this is nothing all that special. But let's go ahead and get in one of those, or get in that background. So we want to go, I want to go find that dark sky background that I loaded in, or that I saved in order to load it in. So I've got this image, and it's tough to see everything here because of my resolution, but I've got, this is my render, this is my composition. So again, I know this isn't an After Effects class specifically, but a composition is basically the, how should I describe it? It's not the project file you're working in, because obviously we're working inside of After Effects, but it's like the document you're working in. It's hard to find the right language for you guys, but this here's our composition, and these are our layers. So naturally, if we drag the sky background underneath the render, we will see what we are hoping to see. So I will drag this down, and I want it to be underneath. I want it to be underneath, and boom, look at that. So this image, the image that I downloaded was much, much larger than the resolution of my composition, because we can see this little window here is what I rendered, and this whole big old box up here is what I downloaded for my sky background. So I'm going to want to change the scale option just by opening up the little twirl down. So I think 25%, I don't know, it's too small. So I can just grab this and make sure that this is sized correctly. So this image isn't exactly the right mood that I want. If we refer back to the reference, I know that this should be a little bit cooler of a tone. This is a very warm image. So instead of like golds, I want something a little bit more like a blue. So I can try to add an effect just because I want to make some small alterations to this image. And again, a lot of the things that you may be familiar with from Photoshop, such as adjustment layers, in After Effects we call them effects, but things like hue and saturation, brightness and contrast, exposure, and many, many more, those are all present. So I think because I want to shift the color of this first, I'm going to try a hue and saturation. So I just type in the name of that into the effects and it pops up here. So I can just add the hue and saturation layer to my background like so, and these settings pop up in this window on the left. So I can try to change the hue to get it to be a little bit kind of cool and spooky. Maybe lower the brightness a bit, maybe the saturation just a little bit as well. And I'm probably going to need to brighten up my text as well. Again, I should have spent more time on lighting, but you know, I have to show a handful of examples, so it is what it is. So I'm going to try the levels adjustment. Just because this GOT in the word Gotham are just so dark that we almost can't even see them. So the levels adjustment, hopefully we should be pretty familiar with from Photoshop. I can just bring the color knot in the middle leftwards, which means that it is compressing the darker side of things, and voila, just like that, the letters that used to be too dark are now quite bright, at least bright enough to where we can read them. So now if I just try to play through this animation, we see something. Again, it's not the most spectacular animation ever. You guys, I'm sure, will make much more interesting and cool things with each of your assignments, but hey, this is what I've got, so this is what I'm going to turn in. So I think I'm pretty good. There are a few other things that I could try to add, and I might as well just give it a shot. Just because we're here, we're already in After Effects, so I'm going to try to add a vignette. It's a pretty simple thing to do if we just make a new layer. So I'm going to make a new solid. This is what After Effects calls just a blank empty layer. And I'm going to color pick something kind of in the dark tones here, just because I don't want to pick something purely black. I want to pick something that's already within the color family of what is on my screen. So I'm going to pick this kind of dark navy blue kind of deal. So a vignette, if we remember from our time in Photoshop, is a way to darken the corners of the image, and the benefit of that is it helps focus your eye or focus your attention to the center of the screen. So we could go and add a mask. Much like how in Photoshop, if you were to paint in a vignette, you would use like a feathered brush and just paint in the corners. We don't necessarily have a paint brush in After Effects, but we can make a mask. So we could make a mask with the pen tool, or we can make one using the ellipse tool. Because circular or elliptical mask is what we want to make. So if I just double click that, we made ourselves a mask, but it's actually the wrong way. Remember, I want to make the corners darker, not the middle darker, because now we can't see anything. So I can just reverse the mask. So down here, where our mask setting is, I can change this from an add mask to a subtract mask. And just like that, we've made the corners darker, but we need to blur this a bit. And thankfully, if we open up the little mask setting, we can feather the mask. So I'm just going to try something like 200. Alright, so that's not too bad. So if I just turn on and off this layer, we can take a look at the effect that it's doing. So it's pretty subtle. You know, I'm not going overboard with this. If you're familiar with like Instagram filters, for example, there are some that have very heavy vignetting or like blurring effects. A little goes a long way, usually, in terms of like motion graphics, or maybe this is getting a little bit closer to compositing, but whatever. At any point, I think I'm pretty happy with what I've got here. So we will just go ahead and render this out. And actually, unlike last time, I'm going to go ahead and save my After Effects project, just because we've done enough here that I don't think it's a bad idea to save. Title. So that's all cool and good. Hopefully we remember that in order to render, we want to go to Composition, Add to Adobe Media Encoder Queue. This is because of the specific format that we want to render, which again is MP4. So we'll jump over to Media Encoder and we will hope that things pop up momentarily. And obviously, I'm only just scratching the surface in terms of After Effects. You know, I try to be light and I balance how much time we spend in that program versus Cinema because, you know, again, you guys signed up for a 3D class. The programs go hand in hand, so you can't necessarily neglect one or the other, in my opinion, if you want to go into motion graphics as a career. So they're definitely both useful to learn. But I would encourage you, if what I showed isn't what you want to do, maybe there is another idea that you've got that After Effects could be used for, to definitely take a shot at it. You can either try to ask me for help and I can give you some suggestions, or if you want to find a After Effects specific tutorial to work through and follow some sort of effect. Maybe you're, I don't know, just because some of these movies and titles were or some of the titles that I did were movies. Maybe you're doing like, I don't know, an old movie and you wanted to make it look like it's a VHS effect or something. Like that's an example of something that After Effects would be pretty good for. You can also add like glows and lights and shine to things, and even wild stuff like lightning bolts and fire and all sorts of crazy stuff. So After Effects is pretty cool. But anyway, that's enough of a tangent there. So I just want to double check that this is going to save where I want it to. I just got to open up. So I just want to make sure that it goes to my assignment 2 folder. This is the right name, so I can click that. And again, it's set to H.264, and I can see that the file extension here is a .mp4. This is what we want. We don't want a AVI or a WMV or anything else. So we can click the Go button right there, and this will go on and do its thing. This bar will fill up blue, and then we will turn our project in. So I will stop the lecture there. Great job, everybody, even though no one's finished it yet. But that's all cool. So we'll see you in the next one.